We speak now about a very general plan of a typical well-tempered clavier fugue. This particular movie will probably bear listening to again because uh, what we talk about here is really essential. The exposition is found at the very beginning of the fugue, and within the exposition, the voices are introduced one by one. The exposition is completed when all voices have completed their initial entrances. More rarely, the exposition may include an additional, or what we call redundant, entrance after all the voices have entered. That's less important, but do keep it in the back of your head. All right, check out what I just said here. The exposition is completed when all voices have completed their initial entrances. Well, what happens then? What do you mean by entrance? Here's what I mean. The very first thing you will hear in a typical well-tempered clavier fugue is the subject by itself, in isolation, and that subject will be followed immediately by the answer. The answer is an imitation of the subject at the level of the dominant. In minor keys, this dominant will be the minor dominant, not the major dominant. Your answer will be real or it will be tonal. In a real answer, the intervals of the subject are imitated exactly in the answer. Not so a tonal answer, for in a tonal answer, one or more of the intervals of the subject is or are changed. Whether an answer is real or tonal has everything to do with the intervals of the subject and the answer. Sometimes subjects and answers are joined by a link. A link is a short passage that connects entries. Its purpose is usually to provide a smooth transition between tonal centers. Appearing first with the answer may be the counter subject. Occasionally, there may be a second exposition or a counter exposition. Again, don't worry about this for now. We'll see one in the F major fugue, but we'll get to that down the road. So, once the exposition is completed, you will find an alternation of episodes and entries. And when I say entries or statements, I mean entrances of the subject or the answer. Entrances refer to the very first material that we hear. An episode, let's speak about there. In an episode, you will find that the subject in its entirety is not present. Episodes thus provide relief from the subject. Episodes also tend to provide a transition from one key to the next, one closely related key to the next, and episodes very often are sequential. We should mention that some entries may be in stretto. Stretto entails two or more entries that overlap each other. It's often found toward the end of a fugue, and it produces a kind of textural crescendo. The important thing to get, though, is this. Once an exposition ends, expect an alternation of episodes and entrances. The final portion of the fugue returns to tonic, and the subject returns often prominently. You may find in a fugue a coda, which may appear after the final cadence, and that coda may be thickened by the addition of extra voices. The coda prolongs tonic. As I mentioned at the bottom of handout 1.04, I recommend, in order to get a feel for how fugues work, that you examine the first 40 bars of the Fugue in G minor from Book 2 of the WTC. That's in your Burkhart Rothstein anthology. I'll walk you through it with my analytical prose, and that should, I think, clarify some of the points that I've been trying to make in the handout and also on this movie. So after that, I'll provide you some questions about the F major fugue from the first book of the WTC, and then the G minor fugue also from the first book of the WTC. But now is a good point to dig into the first 40 bars of the G minor fugue from the second book of the WTC, and you'll find that information up on Blackboard.